Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the House Bill 183, LC number is 3. I'm sorry. All right. Thank you again. This is House Bill 183, LC 393624. This made it out of the House unanimous. This is a bill we did last year. It just got caught up in the end, and so it's just a repeat. It's for the Department of Revenue, and it simply changes it from temporary license plate to temporary operating permit. And the reason why, the tax commissioners, the auto dealers, new and used, they call them tops. And so they just, Department of Revenue just wants everybody to say the same language. So instead of temporary license plate, it's a temporary operating permit, and that way they call them tops, and everybody's saying on the same page. That's as simple as it gets.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at a Senate research paper on this, and it says revises standards for issuing temporary operating permits for motor vehicles that fail to comply with vehicle emission standards. What does your bill have to do with vehicle emission standards?
What line are you at?
I'm not sure. This is just in the summary from the Senate Research Office.
Let's see. I think this is it's on it's the emission. It's on. I might get the Department of Revenue if are they here? Okay. They may be able to answer this a little bit better, but this is just on the application for the renewal for the emissions, so that it didn't fall between the cracks. But they may explain it better than I would.
If you want to step forward and answer that question.
That's on 81, I believe. Line 81.
Line 81.
Line 81 to 87, but.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak on House Bill 183. As has been stated, it is a Department of Revenue agency bill. So to answer your question, this bill restores the original intent of the law, which addresses when an owner of a vehicle has previously registered their vehicle, but for the upcoming registration cycle, they're unable to pass emissions. So what the law allows them to do is be able to take a 30-day period to go and address those repairs, get those repairs completed, pass emissions, and during that time period, they get a 30-day temporary operating permit.
Okay, follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. Does this affect any county that doesn't have emission standards?
It does not.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add to this bill other than answering that question?
Nope, I think all the concerns have been addressed. As stated previously, this bill does reflect a change in the terminology. We just want to be consistent, so there are several areas of the code that have been addressed so that we could reflect temporary plates are now referred to as temporary operating permits. And then this bill is identical to House Bill 1232, which was in last year's legislative session, just didn't make it to be heard on day 40, has passed unanimously throughout the legislative process, so we just ask for your favorable consideration.
I think this is a campaign issue for Chairman Beach. I don't know if
No, it's not a campaign issue, but I do have one quick question. If you extend it 30 days, is there any fee associated to the owner of the vehicle?
There is no additional fee.
Thank you.
what's the will of the committee? Need a motion to pass? We have a second from Chairman Dixon. The motion is by Senator McCord. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for your time this afternoon.
All right, next up is House Bill 35, Representative Hitchens, related to the Georgia Ports.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 35, LC 393562. What this does is it deals, I'm carrying it on behalf of the Georgia Ports Authority, which lies predominantly in my district. And what it does is, what it asks to do is to extend the law enforcement authority from the Port Authority for 1 mile, a 1 mile radius outside the port. And there are two reasons for this. Number one, the port has grown so substantially, they've had to purchase properties off-site, so their law enforcement officers have to transit back and forth to them. And number two, there are 15,000 trucks a day that enter the port to about 2 different ingress-egress points, and they back up traffic substantially. They have minor wrecks. The Port Authority Police have said that they will investigate the wrecks. They have about 40 people on duty at all the time. The cities of Port Wentworth and Garden City have 3 to 5 people on duty, and they're answering calls. I have a letter from every police agency in Chatham County and Glenn County that are affected by the port that are in favor of this. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Let me ask you a question. We have a possible amendment that's in the folders that references inland ports, and you talk about this bill is, I believe, targeted for the ports.
Right.
Is it your understanding that this bill, as currently written, impacts every port in the state?
It came to light some time ago, but we felt like it was too late to make amendment on the House side. I have no objection to that. I don't believe they do either, because on the new inland ports, that's not an issue that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move then to amend House Bill 35 with amendment LC number 390347 in your folder.
All right. Well, in honor of Senator McLaurin, who's asked the majority party to establish a standard for when amendments happen, amendments will happen after a motion of an underlying bill. So I will recognize you for that in just a moment. Are there any other questions for the author? Which number are you on there, Senator?
I like that word. Thank you, Chairman Hitchens. Just a quick question. Line 50, where it says, pursuit of one of whom the peace officer observed committing an offense upon any public or private property within 1 mile under the jurisdiction of the Georgia Port Authority. I know we're talking about the inland ports. Are those under the jurisdiction of the Georgia Port Authority? Do we provide current security to those facilities?
For the ports,
For the inland port.
I'm unaware. My supposition is probably not. Not yet. As they grow, I think that'll become a concern, because their primary duty is protection of the property that's in their ports, and theft is the number one problem as you know. Senator Mallow also represents this area, so theft is the number one problem in the Georgia Ports Authority.
Thank you, Senator Mallow. Any other questions from the committee? All right. What's the will of the committee? We have moved to pass from Senator again, a second from Senator Mallow. I'm going to recognize Chairman Moore.
In the order of good procedure, I ask that we amend House Bill 35 with amendment LC number 390347 to exclude inland ports from this legislation.
All right, we have a motion to amend. Is there a second? Second from Chairman Dixon. Any discussion?
Just a little bit of clarification for me, Mr. Chairman, on the multitude of amendments. My question to the author of the amendments, if the Georgia Port Authority were to take ownership of the inland ports, would we then, from the Georgia Port Authority, be prohibited from securing such facilities because this prohibits that on an inland port?
Senator, I don't think so. My amendment includes at the direction of the governor. So I think if there was a necessity, the governor could direct state troopers or whatever government police force there to take care of the need. This amendment adds inland port to exclude a standing police force at the inland port.
Right, and I think it would just only be the Georgia Port Authority that provides this type of security, not any other law enforcement agencies. They're exclusive to protecting the property and assets of the port. So my question, maybe Legislative Council can answer this. I don't want to vote on an amendment that would lock inland ports in, say they were to come under the ownership of the Georgia Port Authority, for them to have to go to the governor to basically get permission to secure property that they would own and have a duty to secure at that time.
Yeah, Senator, it's my understanding they still have sovereignty over that port. They are the Port Authority.
On the inland port, though.
That's right. just not 1 mile outside of it, which would be the jurisdiction of the local sheriff's office or local police department.
He's essentially amending, as I understand it, the changes that are being made, which is to extend the jurisdiction past the 1 mile. He's not restricting anything within the port property. Is that
That's correct.
accurate?
Yep. That's my legislative intention.
All right, we are still in posture of discussion on the amendment. We recognize Senator Lucas.
Well, I think that in the court, you got one in court either. I don't think it's under the security of the Port Authority. That's a local in on board. Probably.
Senator Gann?
The one in Cordille's all private.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, go ahead, and all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, like sign. Amendment passes 5-3. Now take up the underlying motion, the underlying bill as amended. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up is House Bill 529, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I present to this body today House Bill 529. LC number is 52029-1S. Mr. Chairman, this bill aims to bring the state of Georgia transportation network companies, or Uber and Lyft, insurance code more in line with the national TNC insurance model. The National Council of Insurance Legislators in 2015 came out with model legislation. This model has become the standard across the nation for settling the amounts of insurance that TNCs are required to provide. It protects drivers, it protects the public, and it protects the interest of insurers and TNCs. Currently, Georgia's insurance code requires TNCs to provide $1 million in uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist coverage for TNC drivers engaged in this service. These requirements make Georgia an outlier in comparison with our neighboring states, putting our TNC insurance requirements higher than 42 other states, and with the states such as California, New York, and New Jersey. There has been a compromise with the attorneys, with the insurance companies. Everybody has come together and said, hey, we need to drop that $1 million max, and what they have agreed to is a $300,000 or $100,000 per person for bodily injury, $300,000 per accident for bodily injury, and $25,000 per accident for property damage. Like I said, this is model legislation. This is in addition to what the model legislation called for, because this was a compromise between the two different parties. And once you have insurance companies and you have different faction lawyers, etc., all singing off the same songbook, then they totally support this bill. And it would help our costs with Uber and Lyft drivers hopefully come down on their rates.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions from the committee? All right, we do have a few people signed up to testify. Representative, if you want to take a seat for a second, we'll call you back
Sure.
up at the end of this.
Thank you.
First up, and we're going to go ahead and put you all on a, feeling generous today, so we'll do a 3-minute shot clock. And Dan Snipes, welcome to the committee. Take us
Thank you,
away.
Mr. Chairman. I will not use the entire 3 minutes. To follow up on what Representative Williams said, this is the result. This bill's a result of compromise. We sat down over the summer with representatives of Uber and started crafting legislation, and House Bill 529 is a result, and the Georgia trial lawyers back and support this legislation.
I had people tell me you wouldn't compromise on anything else, so I'm glad to see we have a compromise on this one.
There's a couple more floating around.
All right, fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, Nick Giuliano.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Nick Giuliano. I'm with Impact Public Affairs. Our firm has had the opportunity to represent Uber here back since there was an Uber. As was previously stated, this bill is an update to the legislation actually that Chairman Beach first passed back in 2015. The reason for that is that Georgia acted in its TNC insurance statute prior to a national model came into place. So we were a little fast out the gate and we're playing catch up here, but it's a good bill, simple bill, and Michelle Blackwell from Uber is here to testify as well. We appreciate y'all's support.
Great. I heard you say something. Are we unwinding the work of the good Chairman Beach? Did you say he moved a little quickly?
I would say the chairman moved expeditiously and,
Yes.
and properly, but it was prior to the national model coming into place. So this is a good legislation to add to Chairman Beach's great successes. Thank you, sir.
Well, this is the ultimate compromise today. Michelle, come on, come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Michelle Blackwell, and I am on the U.S. Public Policy team for Uber. I want to be respectful of the committee's time. I don't want to reiterate what has already been said, but I will just add this. There are 7 other states that require TNCs to maintain $1 million or more in this type of coverage. As mentioned by our sponsor, California, New York, New Jersey, Vermont, Oregon, New Hampshire, and Virginia. But notably, there was a bill that recently passed out of the Virginia legislature, reducing that limit to $30,000 per person, $60,000 per accident, which is the state minimum for all drivers. And both North Carolina and Washington passed legislation last year, likewise looking to reduce those limits. I want to be clear about what this bill does not do. It does not change the fact that TNCs will still be required to maintain $1 million of third-party auto liability insurance once a trip is accepted. That is still an amount that is 20 times what is required of every other driver on the road in Georgia. Likewise, it does not change the fact that the driver does not need to do anything to benefit from the coverage that TNCs maintain on their behalf. If they're on the app, they're insured with our primary insurance. So I'm willing to take any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize Chairman Beach.
Do you have any more speakers?
I don't. We'll go ahead and invite Representative Williams back up.
Okay.
Are you prepared to make a motion, Senator?
Yes, whenever he's finished.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. To compromise my past actions, I move due pass on HB 529.
We have a motion from Chairman Beach, second from Senator Mallow. Any comments from members of the committee? Questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Thank
Representative Williams, who's going to carry this bill in the Senate for you?
Did we say Larry? Senator Walker.
Senator Larry Walker. All right. Sounds like a good one for the insurance chairman.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
All right. We had a last-minute ad for Representative Ridley of House Bill 524. I think it's probably just, reasonable, and only appropriate to ask you this question before you start. Is this your first bill?
Yes, sir, it is.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Chairman and members of the committee, for having me and adding me in last minute. House Bill 524, LC number 393765, just clarifies some language in the code currently on three-wheeled vehicles. And this update says those three-wheeled vehicles that have a seat belt or a frame to partially or fully enclose the operator are not motorcycles. New three-wheeled vehicles being made today, a lot of them do have frames, roofs. They look more like a car, and this updates the code to say that they're a car, so you don't have to wear a helmet inside what is practically a car. And I have photos to show if anyone has questions on what these look like.
Are you talking about like a Polaris Slingshot and that?
Slingshot, not so much, but more there's, slingshots could be included depending on the exact model, but long as they have a seat belt and are partially or fully enclosed.
I recognize, like Chairman Ginn.
You know, I'm always curious about these things. I guess watched too much of Hogan's Heroes, and I saw the sidecar. So they'd put somebody in the sidecar, which might have a seatbelt in it. But does that mean if you got a motorcycle with a sidecar, the guy on the motorcycle doesn't have to have a helmet on, and the guy in the sidecar is okay because he's got a seatbelt?
No, sir. It has to. The seatbelt has to be on the operator, and it has to be partially or fully enclosed for the vehicle. So in your sidecar situation, the operator still wouldn't have a seatbelt or be partially or fully enclosed.
Okay.
Thank you. Recognize Senator Still. Hang on, Senator. For some reason, would you mind grabbing microphone 2?
How about now?
Great.
Anything for you, Chairman.
I appreciate that.
Representative, it might behoove the committee to take a look at the photographs that you showed me earlier.
Yes, sir.
I don't know that sidecars are an option of that type of vehicle, but just as a follow-up to that, if someone wanted to wear a helmet and goggles, what brand would you recommend and what would look best in that type of vehicle?
I'd leave that up to their discretion on what they'd like to wear.
Going back to my Polaris, and remind me of the other kind of common one that these midlife crisis things that these guys drive around.
Like Arcimoto is a big brand. There's all different brands that are making them these days. But slingshots, depending on
those
the
are not enclosed at all, correct?
Slingshots?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so that they're actually talking about something different. Is that Senator Mello or McLaurin? McLaurin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I just kind of try to distill the decision for the committee. I mean, the bill is basically the policy judgment that the marginal safety decrease in not wearing a helmet is outweighed by how much of a rockin' good time it is not to have a helmet on. Is that basically the bill?
It's more that you're in a vehicle that's more like a car, so wearing a helmet inside a car is a little redundant.
Redundant and kills the experience, I would imagine.
I'm sure it does kill the
Okay.
experience.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Representative.
Representative, would you kick your own butt if you saw yourself driving one of these?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, Chairman Beach, I think you'd look fantastic in driving to the Capitol in one of these. Senator Mello.
I'm looking at the apparatus here. I just would like to ask the author of the bill, would this make it down I-16? I don't think this will make it down I-16.
It could, but some of these models do make the speed limit, some don't. So if there is a model that could be fast enough for the interstate and meet the minimum speed, it could make it onto I-16.
How about we not put it on I-16?
Chairman Ginn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The two things, one of them for my colleague from down there at the coast. We're hoping it doesn't make it up I-16. We're figuring that side of it. But I pulled a Slingshot motorcycle, and I'm looking at I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's a 3-wheel. It's got a bar over the top of it and a canopy over the top. And I'm thinking there's not a whole lot of functionality difference between this and the picture that you sent around. So would this one qualify in there? And I'm not opposed to the bill. I mean, I don't care if if you want to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, that's up to the rider, in my opinion. But I am kind of curious where you draw the line on, okay, where do these things go?
It has to have a frame and a seat belt. So if that exact model of Slingshot was designed to say that it met the code of having a frame that partially and fully encloses the operator, and then had a seat belt, it would be allowed in this.
Okay, because I see several models that look like they would qualify, and I'm like, okay, I didn't know if we never rode one of these things, so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman Ginn, does that have a windshield on it?
It did have a windshield on that one. I've gone off that site right now. But.
I actually wonder if that's a worthwhile distinction that we potentially want to think about, because the language here of a partial frame that encloses the operator, I think that even on it doesn't speak to an overhead frame, right? So a partial frame could be a frame around you, and you could be conceivably essentially in. Tell me why under this language, and I'm not hazing you, this is an honest question. How under this language, if it has a seatbelt and the frame partially encloses you, but it doesn't look like this. This is enclosed overhead and around you.
I think I see a little glare on that. It's gonna look like a roll bar and a windshield.
So the partially enclosed is more like when you think like a Jeep and people take the doors off, that's no longer an enclosed vehicle. So that's where partially enclosed, like in the Slingshot model, and then in some of the models, like in the photo passed around, they have versions where the doors come off, and that would no longer be an enclosed operator. So the intention, I think, it would still be you're having a windshield, and so you're not getting the wind in your face. You're wearing a seatbelt, so it's more traditional to a car.
Right, but nothing in your language specifies a windshield, correct?
No, correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the committee? Comments? All right. You ran a contested election.
I did.
Where are you from?
Woodstock, Cherokee County.
Woodstock. When you went and knocked on doors and you talked to, the fine people of Woodstock, was this like a leading issue for them?
No, it wasn't.
Was this on a campaign flyer anywhere?
It was not.
How did you choose this as your first bill?
Honestly, several freshman Republicans had a hard time in committees because they took very controversial or hard subjects, and tried to find something that would be a little easier, so to learn the process more than anything, and that's how I ended up with this legislation.
So when you send your first year legislative update to your constituents back home, is your update going to be, I took the easy path and just didn't do anything too difficult?
I passed 2 bills today out of the House that were very contested, so my first bill, yes, it was easier, but number 2 and 3 that passed out of the House today were definitely not easy.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on those bills. I'll ask the committee, what's the will of the committee? We have a motion due pass from Chairman Ginn. Is there a second? Second from Chairman Moore. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Do you think that Senator Beach could carry this for you in the Senate just so that we could have some fun at his expense, or have you already found somebody else?
I already asked Senator Kirkpatrick, and she agreed to do it.
Okay, well, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is for the first 2. Okay, great. Y'all probably received an email today, and we'll close the committee meeting with this. We're going to continue our truck weight conversation tomorrow. We're going to start by hearing from Representative Meeks on his bill that passed out of committee. We're going to ask him to highlight the differences from his bill and the Senate bill that we had considered. We did not get to finish kind of our guided discussion last time, so we're going to have Commissioner McMurray, and whoever else, Frank, from your team you think you may want to have here. We're going to discuss economic benefit of the change, and we're going to discuss any safety implications, of the change, because we did not get to those 2 things last week. My hope would be is that we have 15 or 20 minutes at the end for y'all to ask any questions that you want, and this is going to be an ongoing dialogue. So we'll do a hearing only tomorrow. We only have the room till 8 o'clock. I know 7 o'clock is early, but we want to get a full hour in, so please be on time. And with that, it is a hearing only tomorrow. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. 183 will be carried by Senator Payne and House Bill 35 by Senator Watson. The meeting is re-adjourned.